Oh, such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles, plus a professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Didn't file with TurboTax last year? That's in the past. Now, Taxes is getting the TurboTax app and filing your own taxes for free if you didn't file with them last year. File by February 18th. All tax forms, all 100% free. Now, this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. New filers and filers who didn't use TurboTax last year only must start and file your own taxes in-app by February 18th. Excludes TurboTax Live. Full terms at TurboTax.com.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hey Atlanta, say hello to small business help from Apple. That's right, we're here to make starting and running your business simpler. From helping you choose the right devices to setting them up hassle-free, we can help you build your business in no time. Speak to a business expert and get the help you need at no cost whatsoever. At Apple, we're open for your small business. Go to apple.com/small business or visit an Apple store to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. We're going to have a quick podcast today where we're going to talk about a little bit about the trade deadline, but also about the Cubs' prospects for either winning the National League Central or getting one of the 3 wildcard spots in the National League. So a lot was made of the Cubs, the run-up to the trade deadline, and how many games did they have to win before you could convince Jed to buy instead of sell. And there were sites where they literally, with like 8 games to go, would be like, if they go 8-0 or 7-1 or 6-2, then they'll probably buy. And then if they go 5-3 or 4-4, then Jed will just shit in his hand. But if it's worse than that, then they'll sell. It's the thing that cracks me up about it is, so Jed built this team in the offseason with the idea that they were going to compete for the National League Central or a wild card spot. That was the stated goal. And then here we were 4 full months into the season, and he couldn't judge whether it was working or not, which gives you just a tremendous amount of confidence. What you'd really like to think is the reason he was on the fence was because they were so drastically underperforming their what their expected win-loss should be based on how many runs they were scoring and how many runs they were giving up, which, as I wrote today in the newsletter, you can put that solely at the feet of the dumbest manager in baseball, David Ross. The Cubs, according to that metric, should be 14 games over 500 and have a 3-game lead in the Central. Instead, they are 2 games over, and they are in 3rd place, and they're in 5th place in the wild card spot. There's currently a tie for the 3rd wild card spot, and then there are a couple of teams beyond that. So the 6th. Anyway, they've got a ways. They've got a hill to climb still, but they are playing well. They have played well now since Well, since June, but remember they went on that great run before they went to London. Then they won the first game in London. They were going to get back to 500, and then the Cardinals hit a ball to Trey Mancini, and Trey didn't know whether to shit or go blind, and he kind of laid on the ground for a while, and then Marcus Stroman completely melted down, and then he continued to melt down for 5 more starts after that. Now it turns out he's got a wink wink hip inflammation. Wink wink. Really, we know that's an inflamed ERA. And then they didn't play very well for a while, and that's kind of when everybody was in, shit, I guess they're just probably going to have to sell. And we had the very intelligent arguments like the ones I made, which was they shouldn't, at the least they shouldn't sell. Maybe just don't buy if you're so worried that you might not contend, because of the fact that we really wanted them to keep Cody Bellinger through the trade deadline and spend the last couple of months kissing his ass to try to prime him to return, which is what I think they still should do. And I saw that our favorite prospect pervert, the one who likes to tweet out congratulations to scouts after they draft players. Just the most ridiculous thing. He pulled a clip from Jed's weird bearded post-trade deadline press conference where he thought Jed seemed really confident that the Cubs could re-sign Cody. And I saw a guy who I think is just sleep deprived. They should be confident. And Patrick Mooney pointed out on The Athletic a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week ago, time has lost all meaning, the Cubs can keep Cody. It's not that hard. They just have to make the biggest offer. And honestly, you would think, since they have worked with him all year now, and they seem to, like what they're getting, and he's played very, very well, that they would make the biggest offer. Other teams don't have the first-hand knowledge that the Cubs do. Plus, you do have an advantage. Now, I don't like the hometown advantage thing. Like, he's going to just take less money to stay, as if he's just too lazy to find a new condo. The advantage is, all things being equal, meaning money, a player is going to go where they think they're going to be comfortable. And assuming that he really does like his time in Chicago, if the Cubs have the same deal as somebody else, which means they're going to have to pay up, this is not a discount, he'll probably stay. And that would be a good thing. When they went ahead and made the trade on Monday to get former Cub, Jeimer Candelaria, who I'll admit I thought his name was Heimer for some reason, until he was a Tiger. Jeimer. He's a good offensive player, and you thought, all right, that's a good move. And then he ended up being easily the best offensive player traded at the deadline. It was a weird deadline. With so many teams within reasonable shouting range, there weren't a lot of sellers, and there weren't a lot of buyers who really seemed like they really wanted to spend, a lot of capital, unless you were trading all your top prospects to get the Mets to pay one of their superstar pitchers to pitch for you. When the Cubs got Jeimer, that immediately seemed like a good idea, because here's a guy that could fix your hole at third base, not just this year, but another guy that you get. He seemed to enjoy his time with the Cubs. He was very excited to come back. So he seemed to enjoy his time with the Cubs as he came up through the minor leagues and played, 15 games? I forget what it was. Over 2 seasons. He is a 2016 Cub, so now Kyle Hendricks has company, the guy who was here for a week that year. Another guy that if it goes well these last couple of months and they decide that he's going to be our third baseman, they probably they'll have the inside track to sign him. It was weird, though, that when he got non-tendered by the Tigers, that the Cubs signed Trey Mancini and Eric Hosmer and not Jeimer. And they paid Trey considerably more. Jeimer was on a 1-year, $5 million deal with the Nats. He'd had a bad year in 2021 with the Tigers, but in 2022, he'd been really good in 20 and 21. And switch hitter could play third, could play first, as they're going to force that down our throat. But they were in the we need veteran leadership crap mode last offseason, even though supposedly they hired their manager because he's a great leader of men. But it doesn't matter. Jeimer's here now, and Trey, much to everybody's surprise, is gone. They basically have They're going to eat $9 million and have Trey play for, let's face it, nobody else. I'm sure he'll sign with somebody here once he clears waivers, and then they'll be like, ooh, he can't play anymore. Which is too bad. Trey seems like an awesome dude. He has a great story, and he has no bat speed. And that's very difficult to hit major league pitching when you swing like you're underwater. So that's not going to work. But the Cubs made that trade, and they thought, okay, good. That's like the hard trade to make. Right now, all they have to do, is find a lefty for the bullpen. It really would be nice to find a better bat for the bench than the guys they've got there, and then see what happens. And they didn't really do anything. They did swing a trade with the Royals to get the great Jose Quasimodo. They immediately sent him to Iowa, but he only spent it. I don't even think he actually made it to Iowa, which is the best way to go to Iowa, is to not ever get there. He got promoted when Marcus went on the injured list, and we saw his funky submarine right-hand stuff. This is a guy who, we always joke that a guy pitches so bad he's going to end up on the Long Island Ducks. He actually did that. He came up as an infielder for the Brewers. Came through their system as an infielder. They decided he couldn't hit. They turned him into a pitcher. They gave him like 13 games and said, nah, you suck. The Diamondbacks had him. They said, no, you suck, and they let him go. And then he was out of affiliated baseball for like 2 full seasons. And he was like working for FedEx and playing for the Long Island Ducks. And then he got to the lowest rung of Major League Baseball, which is the Royals. And had a decent year last year and not a great year this year. But he's one of those guys, the pitch lab, they're going to fix him. So we'll see. He's up now, but they didn't do anything else. Jed claimed they didn't really get close because prices were just too high the final day. Well, maybe you shouldn't have waited till the final day. You could have decided that your team, you could at least tinker around with guys, tinker around the edges of your roster, but you didn't do that. So they get Jamer, and then smart guys like me immediately start trying to think of lineups. And one lineup they've been using against right-handers has Cody Bellinger at first base and the great Mike Tauchman in center field. And he thought, that would be good. And then they could play Jamer at third in that lineup, and that would be good. And then you wouldn't have to play Nick Madrigal. First game, right-hander on the mound. There's Jamer at first base and Nick Madrigal at third. But last night, they didn't do that. They had a completely different lineup. They played Jamer at third, and they played Patrick Wisdom at first. I don't quite get that, but that's fine. I'm not going to go into another rant against Nick Madrigal. I would just say this, and I did write this too, that one of the things that worries me going into this playoff push, the Cubs are right there talent-wise with a bunch of with the Reds and the Brewers. I mean, there is not a noticeable talent difference between the two. Maybe the Reds have more talent, but it's young and it's terrible fielding the ball. We've seen that the last couple of days. The Brewers really can't hit. They can pitch, but they can't hit. They've tried to help their offense a little bit. But, I mean, come on. The wildcard teams all have flaws. There's a playoff spot to be had here for the Cubs. And it's going to take some managerial finesse to get through this, and I just really worry, given the guy that we've got managing this team, that he doesn't know which end is up. And one of the things I wrote about was, I think it's fine, as much as I don't like him, it's fine to play Nick Madrigal a little bit right now because he's hitting, and it's fine to play Tauchman because he's hitting. He's actually hitting really well right now. But these are kind of fringe big leaguers, right? I mean, Madrigal, he's got great bat to ball skills, blah blah blah. He's like a 280 hitter at best in reality, with no power, who's playing out of position at third, and he still gets, he's great, look at that, he made a play. It's like, all right, if the ball is hit, I will give him credit. If the ball is hit reasonably close to him, he will make the play. Defensively, he's Ron Say. The Cubs had a stumpy little third baseman from like 1982 to 1986 named Ron Say, a former Dodger great, who had no range and not a great arm, but if you hit the ball close to Ron Say, you would be out. And that's pretty much it. You could hit it over him, you could hit it around him, but if you got to hit it at him, And his range was far worse than Madrigal's even. And the fact that with him and Larry Bow, they used to grow the grass so high that Ron would like disappear if he came in for a bunt. You just see the top of his hat. But if Madrigal is contributing on offense, I can see playing him. And Tauchman right now is hitting well enough that he should be in there. But you need your manager and your fancy analytics guys to keep a pretty close look at both guys' numbers, because they are both playing at an unsustainable level for them. And what we don't need is to ride their regression back to their true value just because. Oh, he's been hot. We're going to see if he gets hot again. No, we're going to be ruthless about this shit. And while you're hot, you're playing. And as soon as you cool off, back to the bench.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
If I thought Ross could do that, I would be fine with it. But I really worried that he's got a lot of Dusty Baker in him, and it's funny because Dusty and him hated each other. It was one of the things I liked about Ross was that when he was on the Reds, Dusty and David Ross hated each other. It was great. He actually played really well for the Reds, and they got rid of him because Dusty hated him so much. But I see a lot of this loyalty to players for no reason crap that we had with the dust bag. It really kind of feels like, and it's only been a couple of days, so who knows, but given Seiya Suzuki's struggles, it kind of feels like there's kind of an awkward Seiya Nick Madrigal platoon that's about to happen, where if you want to take Seiya out of the lineup and play Madrigal, you're just going to play Tauchman in right field, and Heimer's going to play, Jamer's going to play first. And then if you decide you're going to take Madrigal out of the lineup, then Jamer's going to play third, and you can put Seiya back out there, and you can have Tauchman in center, and you can have Cody at first. So it's 2 right-handed hitters, in effect, platooning. The thing I don't like about that is even as much as Seiya has struggled, he's just a lot better player than Nick Madrigal, so maybe play him more. Let's see if that shakes out. But the Cubs did make a trade. They traded the great Adrian Sampson to the Rays, and I saw experts saying, "Oh, a sneaky great move for the Rays." It's like, look, I know the Rays work magic with league average dudes, but I mean the Cubs love Adrian Sampson, and they are at least 1.5 starting pitchers short right now, and they didn't even bother to try to give him a shot. So I wouldn't get too excited about that. I did like the fact that the guy they got in that trade, Kevin Robertson's son, I think, there was highlights of him and another pitcher for some reason. It was like they were alternating. This was the only highlights anybody could find of the guy, and it was 2 guys who throw really hard for the Rays in the minors. And it was a cut up of each of them throwing 5 pitches, and none of them were strikes. Every single one was a ball. Didn't get swung at. It didn't even get approached. It was like, nope, that's way too high. So we're not going to do that. But that was exciting. You could watch that. So the last 2 nights, the Cubs have absolutely obliterated the Reds. because the Reds can't pitch and they can't play defense. What they can do is they've got a lot of exciting young players, including the great Ellie De La Cruz, who people may not have noticed, not hitting very well once the league got a good look at him. But he can do a lot of cool stuff, so people still like that. But the Cubs scored 20 runs one night and 16 the next. It was nice to see both Seiya and Ian Happ homer in the same game, and both of them hit homers off of a catcher, which was great. Although Happ did hit a home run legitimately off of a terrible Reds reliever, but a guy who's at least employed to be a big league pitcher, even if it is the Reds. That comes with a qualification. Happ is, I believe, hitting 208 since June 1st, so that's nice to see. But lately, really stinging the ball. I love the Happ defenders. They have to find these little narrow ranges of, look at this. There's a 4-game stretch here where he slugged over 450. Yeah, did he? Congratulations. Glad he's our starting left fielder on the team we root for. That's terrific. One of the things that the people talk about the Cubs, one of the reasons that Jed was compelled to not sell was that not only did the Cubs keep winning and shamed him out of selling, but their schedule in the second half is pretty light, and they have taken advantage of it lately. The problem with that in the short term is that the schedule gets a little rough. On Friday, the Braves come to town. The Braves are the best team in baseball. They are not playing great right now, so maybe that's a good thing, but still. Then they play the Blue Jays next weekend. But other than that, it is weak. 3 in New York against the Mets, who've given everybody away, which probably means they'll sweep the Cubs. 2 more with the White Sox, and you can't get enough games with the White Sox these days. 3 with the Royals, 3 with the Tigers, 4 with the Pirates. So that all does bode well. So you just have to survive those 6 games with the Braves and the Blue Jays. They finish up with the Brewers to end August. 3 games there. Then they get a day off. They've got a doubleheader with the Reds on the 1st of September. That's a 4-game series against the Reds. And that starts a stretch of competitive teams. It's 4 with the Reds, 3 with the Giants, 4 with the Diamondbacks. Then they get the Rockies and the Diamondbacks on a road trip. They finish up with the Pirates, 3 with the Rockies, and then a road trip to end the season. I don't know why I said they finish. I guess they finish up the home season with 3 with the Pirates and 3 with the Rockies. The season ends with 3 in Atlanta and 3 in Milwaukee. So hopefully by then the Braves they've clinched everything and they're not paying attention. And then the Cubs are close enough to the Brewers that those games matter. But the schedule does bode mostly pretty well for the Cubs, who in recent weeks have been just bludgeoning bad pitching. And you keep that up and you're in pretty good shape. There is the not small issue of the fact that Drew Smyly is bad now. Marcus Stroman was really bad and now is on the injured list. So you're basically hoping that second half Jameson Taillon keeps trucking, and that you should get good starts out of Justin Steele and then Kyle Hendricks, and then God knows what. Hayden Wesneski, Javier Assad. I don't know. There was a lot of talk when they promoted their top pitching prospect, Ben Brown, to AAA, that he's going to fast track him to the big leagues. And then he pitched relatively well, but a short outing of 5 innings. Then he went on the injured list, to which one very prominent news aggregator was like, it's probably fine. They put guys on the injured list in the minors for nothing all the time. Yes, that's right. A guy who you were saying was probably going to come up for the pennant race, they're like, just put him on the injured list for a little bit. That'll be fun. Just to give him a rest. He's overwhelmed by, the S's are silent in Des Moines, but the city is buzzing. And the big lights of Des Moines can really mess with a guy's head. So we'll see what happens. But yes, looking ahead to who their competition is for these playoff spots. There are only 3 out now in the division. The Reds are a half a game ahead of Milwaukee, and then the Cubs are in third with 3 games out. The Brewers are on a losing streak. Well, they've lost one in a row, but they've only won 3 of their last 10. The Reds have obviously lost the 2 games they got pounded by the Cubs. The Cubs' recent barrage of runs has them the precious run differential now at plus 77, which is the 3rd best in the National League. But here's a funny thing. The team that's 4th best is a team that is still flying under the radar because everybody's like, they're bad. They're just not going to get it together. It's the Padres at plus 75. The Cubs are plus 77. The Padres are plus 75. The Padres, for a team that everybody's like, well, the Padres aren't going to make the playoffs. They're a game and a half behind the Cubs in the wild card. And this is a team with an expected expected wins even more than the Cubs. According to the way they've scored runs, they should be 62 and 47. They're 54 and 55. They didn't sell at the deadline. They tried to add some more parts. They are 0 and 10 in extra innings. Just split those, and they're in a wild card spot. So that's the margin we're dealing with here. So if I were the Cubs, I would be concerned that their Golden Arches nemesis is close and far more talented than they are, and frankly, most of the teams that are ahead of them. The Diamondbacks have a really good young team, but they're not playing well, and it could be a case of a young team that just starts to kind of wear out as the season goes. The Marlins are ahead of them, and they can pitch really well. They don't hit great. They're a team that's playing over its skis according to the expected wins losses. They're 58 and 52, and they should be 52 and 58. So who knew Skip Schumacher was such a strategic genius? But apparently he is. Then there's the 3 teams that are actually in. It's not a tie anymore. Milwaukee is a half game ahead of Miami. So the Cubs are in 5th in the wild card race. The Giants are in the 1st spot. The Phillies are in the 2nd spot, and the Brewers are in the 3rd. Then it's Miami, Arizona, and the Cubs, but they're all bunched obviously within 2 games of each other. There's no reason this Cubs team can't vault 3 of those teams and sneak in with that last spot. I would say that given the Giants are a weird team, they pitch really well. They have a really good bullpen. They play really good defense a year after they played horrible defense. But their offense sucks, and they're a weird mix of rookies and old guys like Wilmer Flores and Brandon Crawford. So there's no sure bet. They didn't do anything. The only thing they added was A.J. Pollock. Like, good Lord, he's hitting like 176, and they traded for him because they needed an outfielder for a while. For the first, I think, 100 games of the year, they didn't allow Jock Peterson to play in the outfield. He's now playing quite a bit in the outfield, playing like a guy who's like, yeah, Jock, just DH and sit. Then there's the Phillies, a team that's basically made up of just DHs. But they can hit. They obviously were a World Series team last year. It's a quality team. And then the Brewers, who, we see them all the time. So is the division a better route? It's probably 50-50 as to whether or not you can, you got to catch the Brewers either way, right? And I think the Reds aren't there for the long haul. And so it probably is a 50-50 shot. Is there a chance that the Central has 2 playoff teams despite the fact that it's not very good? Yeah, and actually it might be. You might get the Cubs and the Brewers both in the playoffs. Somebody's got to win the division, and then one team can snake one of the wild card spots. You might be all right. It's really interesting. There's really 2 levels to the National League. There's the Braves that are clearly out there on their, ahead of it all. Then there's the Dodgers who are trying to do this weird thing where they're trying to thread the needle, where they're trying to win, but they are also they tried, and they successfully did. They stayed under the luxury tax, even though they were going to flirt pretty heavily with it with that the trade for Eduardo Rodriguez that he turned down. They did a trade because he wouldn't go. They stay under the luxury tax and it resets, and then the expectation is they're going to go apeshit after Shohei. But their biggest pitching addition then were Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly. Ugh. So typical, you would look at it and say, all right, well, it's the Dodgers and the Braves and then everybody else. It's really the Braves and everybody else. in the National League this year because the Dodgers are just, not that good. I shouldn't say they're not that good. They're not what we're used to them being. They're still a good team. They're 16 games over, and they're going to win the division. And who knows? Maybe it's one of those weird Cardinal things where they take what their inferior team goes through and wins a World Series after the better teams couldn't do it except in the COVID year. But I don't see it. I saw there was somebody who was going on about, the Cubs, if they get in, they have the kind of pitching that can win a short series and make life miserable for somebody. It's like, okay, how many times Justin Steele got a pitch then? I guess this wasn't like when Stroman was pitching really well. And you're like, you could steal the first 2 games and move on, kind of like the Marlins did to them in 2020. I don't know. First things first. Let's just watch and enjoy the fact that they're in it, that they added. We have 2 months now to be extra frustrated by the stupid shit that David Ross does with his ridiculous batting orders, where he just refuses to put Ian Happ either at the very top or bat him 6th or 7th then because he's not going to drive in any runs. Stop putting Ian Happ in front of Cody Bellinger, because there's poor Cody stands on deck and watches Ian kill rallies right in front of him. Or force him into 2 out RBI opportunities. Take it easy on the Nick Madrigal love and just try to sprinkle his fleeting bout of competence. Don't overextend that. Be very careful with journeyman Mike Tauchman, who has done a nice job and certainly has a role on this team. He is a good defensive outfielder. He's just a slow outfielder. But obviously the Cardinals can tell you, he can jump just high enough. He's made nice plays. I have no problem with I'm the guy who created Talkmania, for God's sakes. I like him. I don't want a manager who looks at him and goes, this guy's a star. He's not. He's a good player. Pick spots for him where he can do. And for the most part, they have. Let's take it easy on the Tucker Barnhart stuff. Come on. His defense has regressed. He's hitting right. I was really hoping he had like a good 20 at bat stretch, and I was like, oh, they can trade him now. And I don't even think they've tried. We'll see. Miguel Amaya's first baseman's glove will get more action than he will the rest of the year. How about the fact that he has a first baseman's glove? And we watched Trey Mancini just botch play after play after play because, I got to get another right-handed bat in the lineup. It's like, why didn't you just try Miguel there? Would it have been worse? No, it wouldn't have been. This is the kind of shit that drives you nuts. But anyway, it was nice to get to a deadline and have the Cubs not just have to listen to the perverts tell us, oh my God, you won't believe this great trade Jed made. This guy they got is a sleeper, and he's from Lithuania. He's only played baseball for 8 days, but oh my God, the X velocity, it's amazing. He doesn't use a bat; he actually swings a tree branch. But once they get him a real bat, it's going to be amazing. We didn't get a lot of this. In 6 years, these guys the Cubs traded for are going to be amazing. It's like, no, we got a guy who they immediately put in the lineup, and he has 8 hits in 2 games. How about the fact that he played 2 years, Jamer played 2 years for the Cubs, parts of 2 years. He has more hits in his first 2 games back than he did in his first entire stint with the Cubs. So we'll see. This is certainly more fun than get to the deadline and we give up on the season and, watch, Ian Happ's going to start hitting now because we're not trying to win anymore. It should be fun. So if you made it to the end of the podcast, I'm going to give you a little podcast news because we've made this official. As you know, the Chicago Bears are back in training camp. They've had a goal since training camp to bring Chicago a Super Bowl champ. They're back, which means the Bears podcast is going to return, and we have made an enhancement to the podcast. Mike Busteri is back for his 3rd season on the Bears podcast, but also Mike Presnowski is going to join the podcast. There's going to be 3 of us sitting around being completely wrong, but hopefully in a funny way, about the Bears. So we're excited to have Prez on board, and we're going to start that. Once the preseason gets out, we'll do a preseason season preview, and then you'll hear us every week talking about the Bears. If you're wondering why Dave Brown wasn't on this podcast, how's this? It's because Dave and I only communicate, other than when we're on the pod, through Twitter, which is a bad idea. He got his account suspended for something, and we couldn't arrange the time. So instead of not doing a pod, I'm like, I will just blab on for a half hour. And I have done that. So we'll get Dave on, and we can talk about what's coming up in the last couple of months of the season, and we will do that soon. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.
Many of us have herpes.